No, they haven't.
This is Bronco Buster,
Let's see. I
and
gotta
that
see
is
where he's
Rattlesnake.
sending me.
All right.
So come on in.
Baby, over here, sir.
I'll go over here. If that's all right with you.
Come all the ways in. Hey, Matt, why don't you come on in as the other people coming by? There you go. Okay, so welcome to the Oval Office. This is an exact replica. When they were building the library, the president made a point wanting an exact replica of the Oval Office. The architect came in and said, Mr. President, because of building codes in Simi Valley, we're going to have to be about 4 feet lower than the actual Oval Office. The president thought for about a second and a half and said, well, if you can't go up, go down. That's why most of you just walk down 5 steps out here. The reason we tell that story is to show the president was very practical in the way he would resolve issues. You have 4 doors that come into the Oval Office. The one directly across from you is, if you walk through that door, you have a little powder room to your right, kitchenette, go further in on your right, all the ways in is a dining area. Thursdays, Vice President Bush and President Reagan are both in town. You have standing appointments to have lunch together. You have Bush coming from Texas and you have Reagan from California, so usually the cuisine would be Tex-Mex or Mexican food. They both like that type of food. If you go through and make a quick left, you're in the president's private study. President Reagan could go in there with his work, take his jacket off, get a cup of coffee from the kitchenette, sit down and do his work in a more comfortable atmosphere. If you're going to come in to visit the president, this door built into the wall over there next to Andrew Jackson. You come through out here in the west wing. You're going to come through the Roosevelt room where the Secret Service will prepare you and get you ready for the president. You'll walk through a short hallway and come through that door to meet the president when they're ready for you. The door that most people will walk out of is this door here. It's also built into the wall the same way as that one over there. When you walk out the door, that's the president's personal secretary and the assistant. You have the cabinet offices and the vice president's office all going down the hallway. In this door that most of you walked in, this would be the patio door or the French door that we have. Whenever the president's going to go out to the Rose Garden, the camera sets up and they're focused on that door waiting for the president to walk out. This would be that door. The way we're showing the office today would be the 6th year of President Reagan's administration. The first 6 years, I'd like to think he had more important things to do, and he left it pretty much the way President Carter had. But in the 6th year, he went to earth tone colors that you see in here, went to this rug, and went to the way you basically see it. Usually people want to know what's authentic to the Oval Office. Most of the things in the White House, when the president gets there, they're owned by us, the taxpayers. So they're there when the president shows up. When the president leaves, they don't encourage them taking souvenirs with them. So they only get to take the things that they brought with them. So in here, things that are actually original to the Oval Office. The 2 flags and the photographs behind the desk. That chair behind the desk, Mrs. Reagan gave that to the president as a gift when he was governor of California. He used it for 8 years in Sacramento as governor. Then he used it for 8 years in the Oval Office in the White House. The items on top of the desk were all authentic except for the phone. The phone is correct for the era, but it didn't come out of the Oval Office. Across from you, you see a ceramic eagle, that's authentic. All the bronze statues that you see, the saddles, the horses, the animals, those all come from the Annenberg Foundation. Those are authentic. On the couches, you see the 4 burnt orange or coral-colored pillows. Those are original. Behind this Chinese lamp closest to us, if you kind of look around it, you'll see a little tankard with jelly belly beans.
Yo.
Original from the President's Oval Office. Last but not least, to the right of the fireplace is a little presentation case.
Red and black.
Nope, all mixed. That little presentation case over there to the right of the fireplace when the president, 1984, went back to Normandy for the 40th commemorative services of D-Day. One of the villages back there presented him with that. Those are little miniature soldiers of the officers that took part in the Battle of the Bulge. The gravel comes from that village that presented it to him. Everything else would be a replica in here. When you're decorating your President of the United States, you can pretty much do whatever you want, but there are some things that you can't touch, like the eagle on the ceiling. You have to leave that. Tradition says you're gonna have a portrait of George Washington over top the fireplace. Different presidents use different ones. This is a General George Washington. It was painted following the victory over the British at Boston. So that's one President Reagan selected. Tradition says you're gonna have another president that you feel a close kinship to. Recently, since Andrew Jackson made it into the newspaper, since they're going to take him off a $20 bill, people start asking why Andrew Jackson. The first 6 presidents of the United States are all aristocrats. They're very wealthy, well-educated people. President number 7, Andrew Jackson, starts out very poor. Early on in life, he becomes an orphan, goes into the military as a horse person, comes up through the cavalry. He's the first president of the people. When he takes office, the government, if you can believe this, is in debt to the tune of $17 million. During his administration, they were able to pay off the debt in full, and he balanced the budget. Those are some of the reasons why President Reagan appreciated him. Most noteworthy item, or most recognizable item, and here would be the desk. We have 2 names for it. It's known as the Resolute or the Hayes desk. Back in the early 1860s, we had 3 English ships looking for a western passage across Canada. One of them, the HMS Resolute, gets stuck in the ice. The crew gets off, they're rescued, so that's not an issue, but the ship is abandoned. About a year and a half later, it's found floating abandoned off the New England seaboard. American whaling ship tows it into Boston. A wealthy merchant pays to have it refitted. It's given back to Queen Victoria of England as a gesture of goodwill from the American people. Stays in service for about 25 years. The end of the 1880s, when it's retired, the Queen commissions 3 desks to be made from some of the timbers. One of those desks then is given back to the American president. At the time, it's Rutherford B. Hayes, as a gesture of goodwill from the English people back to the American people. So we call it the Hayes or the Resolute. Not all presidents have used it since we've had it, and they certainly haven't all used it in the Oval Office. 2 modifications have been made to it. First one, FDR, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt would use it, it's known as a partner's desk. If you notice on this side, you have doors and drawers. You also on the other side, it's meant for 2 people to work at it. Fortunately, if you're the president, you don't have to share your desk. You get to have it by yourself. So if FDR would be sitting there, this panel on the front with that eagle wasn't there. And so somebody walking in would see he had bracing on his legs or he's sitting in a wheelchair. So he commissioned a door to be made. Reason it's a door and not a fixed panel. They don't have air conditioning, so you could leave the door open for ventilation. Then somebody comes in, closes the door. Unfortunately, FDR passed away before the door was actually added, so it was added during President Truman's administration. Some of us that are old enough remember Life magazine with John Jr. crawling through the doorway there and President Kennedy standing behind it. Jump ahead a couple of years later with President Kennedy. When he comes into office, Jacqueline Kennedy wants to update the White House. It's in a little bit of a state of disrepair. And so she starts going around as one of her first things is inventorying what's available to her. She's in a downstairs carpenter workshop. There's a work table with a canvas over top of it. They pull the canvas up and the Resolute desk is being used as a work surface by the carpenters. She recalls it to the Oval Office. That's why we get to have that picture of President Kennedy standing behind it. After President Kennedy is assassinated, the desk leaves the White House, goes on tour around the United States. American people have a close connection between the deceased president and the desk. Goes on tour. When it gets done, it doesn't go back to the White House. It goes to the Smithsonian, so we could still go there and visit it. When President Carter comes into office, he recalls it from the Smithsonian, wants it back at the White House. But when it shows up, there's a 3-inch piece of white pine on the bottom of the desk. No one knows when it was added. He had him take it off and use it as his desk. Early on in President Reagan's administration, a staffer standing behind him and noticed that his knees were kind of bent off to the side. He asked him about it and he said that the drawer hits him in the knees. The desk is too low. So they actually commissioned a 3-inch piece of oak to be added to the bottom of the desk that would actually blend and raise it back up. Before you ask, this is not the original desk. The original desk is in Washington, D.C. President Trump is using it if he's in town today. This is a replica, but I do have good news for you. We do sell replica desks in our gift shop for $6,500. You can take it home with you as like the ultimate souvenir from the Reagan.
Take cash, check?
Sure, we'll take anything.
Money order?
Absolutely, yes. In fact, what's that camera worth? We'll take trades.
$6,500, what amazing.
Does anyone have any questions? I could try to answer for you. Okay, well then the tour is going to continue on that way, and you'll be headed out toward the White House, State House dinners and the First Lady's dresses. Thank you. Thank you very much for coming.
That was great.
Hey, we learned a lot.
Well, good, I'm
That
glad
was
to hear that.
terrific.
Oh, well, thank you.
I've heard a couple of other docents say that President Reagan said, you're either going to have to raise this desk or lower my knees. Is that true? Is that what he said?
I've heard that one
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
Come,
Kind of cute.
come on in and welcome to the Oval Office. Then you just do it again.
There you go. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Welcome to the Oval Office. This is an